My sister demanded I pay $8,700 for her wedding dress after I'd already spent $52,000 on her venue. When I refused, my mother screamed about my new boat. So, I cut their funding, kept my boat, and watched their perfect wedding crumble. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. I was lying in the semi-darkness of my master bedroom, the blackout curtains drawn tight against the mid-afternoon sun. My head was throbbing with a migraine so severe that even the hum of the air conditioning felt like a physical assault on my senses. I had been home from the hospital for only 48 hours, recovering from a stress-induced cardiac event that my doctor had warned me was a final notice from my body. I was 38 years old, a vice president of operations for a global logistics firm, and I had worked myself into a hospital bed. The silence was the only medicine that seemed to be working. I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, but I had configured the settings to allow calls from favorites to break through, a safety measure for my 10-year-old daughter, Maria, and, regrettably, my parents. When the phone rang, the shrill noise sliced through my skull like a hot knife. I groaned, fumbling for the device on the nightstand, squinting against the harsh blue light of the screen. It was my mother, Patricia. My chest tightened, a phantom echo of the pain that had sent me to the ER 3 days prior. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but the conditioning ran deep. If I didn't answer, she would call Cameron, my father, and he would call my landline, and eventually they would show up at my door. "Hello," my voice rasped, weak and dry. "Lydia, finally," Patricia's voice boomed through the speaker, devoid of any concern or question about my health. There was no, "How are you feeling?" or "Is your heart rate stable?" There was only the frantic, breathless energy of a woman on a mission. "I have been trying to reach you for an hour. We are at the boutique with Claire. You need to wire the money now." I blinked, trying to clear the fog of painkillers from my brain. "Wire money? Mom, I'm in bed. I told you I was discharged on Tuesday. I'm trying to sleep." "Well, you can sleep after you handle this," she snapped, her tone dismissive. "Claire has found the dress. It is exquisite, Lydia, truly fitting for a bride of her caliber. But the boutique requires payment in full to start the alterations immediately because the wedding is only 3 months away. It's $8,700. I froze. The phone felt heavy in my hand. 8,000? Mom, what are you talking about? We discussed the budget. I told you the venue, the flowers, and the DJ were my contribution. That was $52,000. I told you last week I was done." "Don't be dramatic," Patricia huffed. I could hear the rustle of fabric in the background, likely Claire twirling in front of a mirror, oblivious to the fact that she was demanding nearly $9,000 from her sick sister. "It's her wedding dress. She is your only sister. You can't expect her to walk down the aisle in something off the rack. She's crying, Lydia. Do you want to ruin this moment for her?" My heart monitor wasn't hooked up to me anymore, but I could feel the palpitations returning. The sheer entitlement wasn't new, but the timing, while I was physically incapacitated, felt particularly predatory. "I can't do it, Mom," I said, my voice hardening. "I literally cannot do it. I moved some assets around this week for personal reasons. I don't have liquid cash for a dress right now." There was a pause on the line, a cold, sharp silence. "Personal reasons?" Patricia's voice dropped an octave. "What personal reasons could possibly be more important than your sister's happiness? You make plenty of money. Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying. I'm telling you no." "You are being selfish," she spat out, the venom in her voice clear. "You are sitting in that big empty house, hoarding your money, while Claire is trying to build a life. Send the money, Lydia, or don't bother coming to the shower next week." She hung up before I could respond. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, mocking me. I dropped the phone onto the mattress and stared at the ceiling, the pain in my head now rivaled by a sick, sinking feeling in my gut. I had given them everything, my time, my energy, my money, And in my moment of weakness, they didn't see a person. They saw an ATM that was malfunctioning. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. For a long time, I just lay there, listening to the silence of the house. It was a beautiful home, one I had bought with my own bonuses and stock options, but right now it felt like a fortress under siege. I slowly sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. The dizziness hit me, but I forced myself to stand. I needed water. I needed clarity. I walked down the hallway, passing the open door of Maria's room. She was at school, thank goodness. She didn't need to see her mother like this, shaking, pale, and furious. I went into my home office and sat down at my desk, waking up my computer monitors. I pulled up the spreadsheet, Claire's wedding expenses. The numbers glared back at me in stark black and white. Venue deposit and rental, $28,000. Floral arrangements, custom, $12,500. DJ and lighting package, $6,500. Catering deposit, $5,000. Total paid by Lydia, $52,000. I had agreed to this. I had offered, actually, in a moment of weakness when Claire had announced her engagement to a man who, quite frankly, didn't seem to have a job that could support her champagne tastes. I wanted my little sister to be happy. I wanted my parents to be proud. I wanted to buy the love and approval that had always been conditional in our household. But $8,700 for a dress, on top of everything else. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Claire. Mom said you're being difficult. PLS, don't be like this. The dress is perfect. It makes me look like a princess. Just put it on a credit card if you have to. I'll pay you back eventually. Love you, Zoxa. Eventually, the word was doing a lot of heavy lifting. Claire had never paid me back for anything in her life. Not for the car down payment when she was 20. Not for the loan for her modeling portfolio that went nowhere. I closed the spreadsheet and opened a different folder. This one was titled The Maria Rose. A smile touched my lips for the first time in days. Inside the folder were photos of a 42-foot cruiser, gleaming white with navy trim. I had closed on the purchase 3 days before my heart scare. It was a beauty, 3 cabins, a spacious galley, and a sun deck where I pictured myself reading books while Maria fished off the back. It cost $340,000. I had paid in full, liquidating a significant portion of my non-retirement portfolio to do it. It was my dream. It was my escape plan. It was the one thing I had done purely for myself and my daughter. That was the personal reason I had mentioned to my mother. That was where my liquidity had gone. I looked at the picture of the boat, sitting in the slip at the marina, waiting for me. My mother and sister didn't know about it yet. I had planned to surprise them, maybe take the family out for a sunset cruise once I was feeling better. I thought they would be happy for me. I thought they would see it as a sign of my success, something for the whole family to enjoy. But staring at Claire's text message, a cold realization washed over me. They wouldn't see a boat. They would see a floating pile of cash that I had stolen from them. They would see $340,000 that could have bought Claire a house, or paid for a lavish honeymoon, or upgraded my parents' retirement. I didn't reply to Claire. Instead, I opened my banking app. I looked at the pending transactions. The checks for the venue and the flowers had been written, but they hadn't cleared yet. It was a Friday afternoon. They wouldn't process until Monday morning. My finger hovered over the mouse. I remembered the way Patricia had spoken to me. You can sleep after you handle this. As if my health was an inconvenience to their shopping trip. I thought about the years of missed birthdays because I was working to get that promotion. I thought about the holidays where I sat in the corner, exhausted, while Claire opened gifts I had paid for, basking in the adoration of our parents. They thought I was trapped. They thought I was desperate for their validation. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just the bank, I was the one with the passwords. To understand why I even considered paying $50,000 for a wedding that wasn't mine, you have to understand the ecosystem of my family. I was the eldest, the responsible one. I was the trial run. My parents, Patricia and Cameron, were young when they had me, struggling to make ends meet. I grew up with hand-me-downs, latchkey afternoons, and the constant mantra that hard work was the only way to survive. I took that to heart. I studied late, worked 2 jobs in college, and climbed the corporate ladder with bloody fingernails. Then came Claire. Claire was born when I was 12. By then, my father Cameron had landed a stable sales job, and Patricia had settled into a comfortable life. Claire didn't get the struggle, she got the surplus. She was the golden child from day one. Blonde, bubbly, and demanding, she was treated like a porcelain doll while I was treated like the heavy machinery required to build her playhouse. Patricia, a retired teacher, had crafted an image of a perfect family, but it was a facade maintained by my paycheck. She was a woman who cared deeply about appearances. She was polished, always wearing stiff blazers and too much hairspray. With a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she operated on a currency of guilt. Lydia, you know Claire isn't as academic as you. She needs help. Lydia, you're the big sister. It's your job to provide. Cameron, my father, was a ghost in his own house. He was 65 now, a retired salesman who spent his days golfing or watching TV. He wasn't malicious, but his passivity was a weapon. He let Patricia run the show. If she said jump, he asked how high. If she said Lydia needs to pay, he would just nod and say, "Help your mother out, Lyd." He never protected me. He just wanted a quiet life, even if it cost me mine. And then there was Claire. At 24, she listed her profession as influencer, which mostly meant she posted photos of lattes and outfits I bought her on Instagram. She was beautiful, yes, but there was a rot underneath. She had never been told no, not once. I sat in my office, the migraines slowly receding into a dull throb, and thought about the last time I saw them all together. It was at a dinner 2 weeks ago, right before I bought the boat. Patricia had been holding court at the head of the table. "We are just so proud of the wedding planning," Patricia had said, swirling her wine glass. "It's going to be the event of the season. The editor of Style Weddings might even feature it. Of course, we need to make sure the aesthetics are perfect." She had turned her gaze to me then. Her eyes were like shark eyes, flat and assessing. "Lydia, I was thinking," Patricia had said, her voice dropping to that confidential, manipulative whisper. "Your bonus is coming up, isn't it? The one for the merger? We were looking at upgrading the champagne toast to Dom Perignon. It's only an extra $4,000. A drop in the bucket for you, really." "I don't know, Mom," I had said, feeling the pressure. "I have my own expenses." "Expenses?" Claire had laughed, a tinkling, cruel sound. "Lydia, you live alone. What expenses? You don't even date, you just work and hoard money. It's actually kind of sad. Let us help you spend it on something joyful for once." Joyful. That was their narrative. I was the sad, lonely spinster workaholic, and they were the vibrant, life-affirming family doing me a favor by spending my wealth. But they didn't know about Maria's trust fund, which I funded religiously. They didn't know I donated heavily to cardiac research, and they certainly didn't know about the Maria Rose. Now, Patricia was back to her old tricks, but the stakes were higher. She wasn't just asking for champagne, she was demanding I bleed myself dry while I was literally recovering from a heart scare. I pulled up my email. There was a message from the marina manager confirming my slip assignment. "Ms. Lydia, your vessel is ready for boarding. We've stocked the fridge as requested. Enjoy your weekend." I looked at the timestamp. It had arrived 10 minutes ago. Then my phone lit up again. Another call. This time it wasn't Patricia, it was Cameron. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Hey, Dad." "Lydia," his voice was weary, sounding rehearsed. "Listen, your mother is really upset. She's in the car crying. Claire is refusing to leave the boutique without the dress order placed. Can you just handle it? For me, I don't want a war this weekend." "Dad," I said softly, "I just got out of the hospital." I know," he said, brushing it off. "But you know how your mother gets. It's just money, Lydia. You can make more, just fix it." It's just money, you can make more. That was the line that broke me. It wasn't the screaming. It wasn't the entitlement. It was the complete devaluation of my labor, my health, and my existence. "You're right, Dad," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I can make more, but I'm not going to." "What?" "I'm not sending the money." "Lydia, don't be stubborn." "I have to go, Dad. I have a boat to catch." I hung up. The decision had been made. The hook was set, but not the one they expected. I wasn't going to be the fish they reeled in anymore. I was going to be the storm that capsized their little dinghy. The decision didn't come with a crash of thunder or a sudden burst of adrenaline. It arrived with a terrifying, icy calm that settled over me like a heavy blanket. I sat at my desk, staring at the phone I had just hung up. The echo of my father's dismissive voice, "It's just money, Lydia," bounced around the silent room. For years, I had operated under the delusion that I was buying love. I thought if I wrote enough checks, if I solved enough crises, if I smoothed over enough rough patches, eventually they would look at me with the same adoration they reserved for Claire. But the truth was staring me in the face, illuminated by the glow of my monitors. I wasn't buying love. I was paying a ransom for a relationship that didn't exist. I didn't pack immediately. Instead, I opened a new browser window and logged into my primary bank account, the one connected the checking account I used for family gifts. I navigated to the Pending Transactions tab. There they were. Check 402, Grandview Estate Weddings, $28,000. Check 403, Petals and Vines Floristry, $12,500. Check 404, Soundwave Entertainment, $6,500. The dates were from Tuesday, the day I was discharged. I had written them with a shaky hand, my chest still hurting, because Patricia had insisted the vendors were threatening to release the date if I didn't pay immediately. I stared at the stop payment button. My heart hammered against my ribs, a staccato rhythm of fear. This was the nuclear option. This wasn't just saying no to a dress, this was dismantling the entire event. This was a declaration of war. "Do it," I whispered to the empty room. "For Maria." I clicked the button for the first check. A confirmation box popped up. "Are you sure you want to stop payment on check 402? A fee of $30 will apply." $30 to save $28,000, I muttered. Best bargain of my life. I clicked confirm, then I did it for the flowers, then the DJ. I watched the status change from pending to stop requested. The relief was instantaneous and overwhelming, washing over me so intensely that I actually gasped. It was done. The money was safe. The leverage had shifted, and they didn't even know it yet. But I wasn't finished. The investigator in me, the part of my brain that managed complex logistics and rooted out inefficiencies at work, woke up. If I was going to go to war, I needed ammunition. I needed to know exactly what I was fighting against. I spent the next 2 hours digging. I pulled up archived bank statements going back 5 years. I cross-referenced the emergencies Patricia had called me about with Claire's social media timeline. June 2019, Mom calls, crying that Dad needs urgent dental work not covered by insurance. I wire $4,500. July 2019, Claire posts a photo album from a resort in Cabo. Caption, "Family vacay, so blessed." February 2021, Claire's car breaks down, and she needs $2,000 for a transmission or she'll lose her job. February 2021, Claire posts a photo of a new designer handbag, tagged, "Treat yourself Gucci." The pattern was undeniable. It wasn't just entitlement, it was fraud, systemic, calculated, emotional fraud. They had been lying to me for years, using my concern for their well-being to fund their luxuries. I printed every single screenshot. I highlighted the dates. I built a dossier of deception right there on my mahogany desk. When I finally stood up, the sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky. My migraine was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I went to my bedroom and packed a weekender bag. I threw in comfortable clothes, my medication, and a picture of Maria. I walked out to my car, tossing the bag into the passenger seat. I didn't look back at the house. I drove straight to the marina, the dossier of evidence tucked safely in my purse. The drive was a blur of highway and anger. When I pulled into the secure lot of the Bayside Marina, the smell of salt and diesel fuel hit me, and for the first time in days, I took a deep breath that didn't hurt. I walked down the long wooden dock, the planks creaking softly under my boots, and there she was, Slip 42, the Maria Rose. She was beautiful, a sleek white sanctuary floating on the dark water. I stepped aboard, the gentle sway of the hull welcoming me. I unlocked the cabin, threw my bag onto the plush beige sofa, and poured myself a glass of water. I was safe, or so I thought. I had forgotten that Patricia had my location on her phone. I had set it up years ago for safety, in case I had a medical emergency living alone. I had never turned it off. I was sitting on the aft deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in bruised purples and oranges, when I heard the distinct click of heels on the wooden dock. "Excuse me, you can't be back here," a deckhand shouted from the gate. "I am her mother, get out of my way." My stomach dropped. I stood up, gripping the railing. Patricia was marching down the dock, her face a mask of fury. Cameron was trailing behind her, looking like a man marching to the gallows. And trailing them was Claire, still wearing a white robe from the bridal salon, looking utterly ridiculous and terrifying all at once. I didn't invite them aboard. I stood on the raised deck of the Maria Rose, looking down at them on the dock. The height difference gave me a psychological advantage I desperately needed. "Lydia," Patricia shrieked, stopping right in front of the slip. She was out of breath, her face flushed a blotchy red. "What the hell is this? We have been calling you for 3 hours. The boutique is closed. We lost the appointment because of you." Claire was pouting, her arms crossed over her chest. "Seriously, Lyd, you ran away to a boat show? We're in crisis mode here." "It's not a boat show," I said, my voice projecting clearly over the water. "And I didn't run off. I came to my property." Patricia blinked, confused. She looked at the gleaming vessel, then back at me. "Your property? What are you talking about? Who does this belong to?" "It belongs to me," I said, leaning casually against the chrome railing. "I bought it on Tuesday, before I went to the hospital." The silence on the dock was deafening. Even the seagulls seemed to stop squawking. You bought this?" Cameron finally spoke up, his eyes wide as he took in the radar arch, the polished teak, the sheer size of the cruiser. "Lydia, a boat like this must cost." $340,000, I said, cutting him off. "Fully paid. The wire transfer cleared this morning." Patricia looked like she had been slapped. Her mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Then, the shock morphed into a rage so intense I could feel the heat radiating off her. "You bought a boat?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "You bought a $300,000 toy while your sister is begging for a wedding dress. Are you insane, you selfish, narcissistic little—" "Stop," I said. I didn't shout, but the command was sharp enough to cut through her tirade. "I didn't buy a toy. I bought a legacy for my daughter. I named it after her." I pointed to the stern, where the name the Maria Rose was painted in elegant gold script. "Maria doesn't need a boat," Claire yelled, stomping her foot on the dock. "I need my dress. How could you do this to me? You said you didn't have the liquid cash. You lied." "I didn't lie," I replied calmly. "I said I couldn't afford it, and I can't, because I spent my disposable income on this, for me, for my life." "You have plenty of money," Patricia countered, stepping closer to the edge of the dock, her finger wagging in my face. "You make a fortune. You can return this monstrosity. Get your money back right now and transfer the funds for the dress. And while you're at it, we need to discuss the honeymoon." Claire found a resort in Bora Bora that— I actually laughed. It was a dark, humorless sound that bubbled up from my chest. "Return it? Mom, it's a boat, not a sweater from Macy's. There are no returns. It's done. Then sell it, Patricia demanded. List it tomorrow. I don't care what you have to do. You will not embarrass this family by letting your sister walk down the aisle in rags because you wanted to play captain. Rags, I raised an eyebrow. Claire has a perfectly good job, or she could ask her fiancé to pay for it. Why is this my responsibility? Because you are the family bank, Claire blurted out, the mask slipping completely. There it was, the truth, naked and ugly, floating in the air between us. Claire, Cameron hissed, looking embarrassed. No, let her speak, I said, my grip on the railing tightening until my knuckles turned white. Say that again, Claire, I am the what? You know what I mean, Claire sneered, trying to backtrack but failing. You've always paid, that's your role. You're the smart one, the rich one, I'm the pretty one, that's how it works. You pay for things so I can have the life I deserve, it's fair. It's fair, I repeated, shaking my head slowly. You think it's fair that I work 60-hour weeks, that I give myself heart attacks from stress, just so you can post photos from Bora Bora. You love working, Patricia interjected, trying to regain control of the narrative. It's your passion, we just help you spend the excess so you don't turn into a miser. We are doing you a favor, Lydia. Now, stop this nonsense. Get off that boat, come home, and write the check for the dress. I'm tired of this drama. She held out her hand, expecting me to obey like I had for 38 years. She expected me to fold. She expected the guilt to crush me. No, I said. Patricia's hand stayed in the air. Excuse me. I said no, I'm not selling the boat, I'm not writing the check, and I'm not coming home. Patricia's eyes narrowed into slits. If you don't fix this, Lydia, I swear to God, you think we're mad now? Wait until you see what happens. You will be cut off. You will be uninvited from the wedding. You will be dead to us. Is that a threat? I asked. It's a promise, she spat. Fix it or else. I looked at them. My mother, vibrating with rage, my father looking at his shoes, my sister looking at me with pure hatred. And I realized the dossier in my bag wasn't just evidence. It was the closing argument. You want to talk about fixing things? I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Okay, let's talk about the wedding. The wind picked up, whipping my hair across my face, but I didn't move to brush it away. I stared down at them, feeling a strange sense of detachment. The cord that had tethered me to their approval for nearly 4 decades had finally snapped. What about the wedding? Patricia snapped, her patience clearly at an end. The venue is booked. The invitations are at the printer. The only thing missing is the dress money you are hoarding. Actually, I said, reaching into my bag and pulling out the folded printout of the stop payment confirmation. I held it up, though I knew they couldn't read the fine print from the doc. There's a lot more missing than the dress. What is that? Claire asked, her voice trembling slightly. This, I said, is a confirmation from my bank. About 3 hours ago, I placed a stop payment order on 3 checks. Patricia froze. Which checks? Check 402 to Grandview Estate, check 403 to Petals and Vines, and check 404 to Soundwave Entertainment. The color drained from Claire's face so fast I thought she might faint. She grabbed Cameron's arm to steady herself. No, you didn't, you wouldn't. I did, I said. $52,000. It's all been recalled. As of Monday morning, those vendors will be notifying you that your deposits have failed. You don't have a venue, you don't have flowers, you don't have a DJ. You bitch, Claire screamed, the sound echoing off the hulls of the neighboring boats. You ruined my wedding, you jealous, ugly bitch. You did this on purpose. Lydia, Patricia roared, stepping onto the gangway of my boat. Don't you dare step foot on this vessel, I warned, stepping forward to block her path. This is private property. If you come aboard, I will call the marina security and have you removed for trespassing. Do not test me, mother. Patricia halted, 1 foot on the ramp, shocked by the ferocity in my voice. She pulled her foot back, retreating to the dock. You have lost your mind, Patricia hissed, shaking. Do you realize what you've done? You have humiliated us. How are we supposed to pay for this? We don't have $50,000 lying around." "I know you don't," I said, "because you spent all your money on vacations you told me were medical emergencies." I reached into my bag again and pulled out the second stack of papers, the dossier. "What are you talking about?" Cameron asked, finally looking up, his face pale. "I did some digging, Dad," I said, looking directly at him. "Remember that dental surgery you needed in 2019? The one I sent $4,000 for. Funny, because the same week I sent that check, Claire posted photos from Cabo." I tossed the stack of papers onto the dock. They landed with a heavy thud at Cameron's feet. "And the car repair in 2021? I continued, my voice gaining strength. $2,000 for a transmission coincided perfectly with the purchase of a Gucci bag. It's all there. The dates, the amounts, the lies." Cameron looked down at the papers, but he didn't pick them up. He looked at Patricia. "Trish, is that true?" Patricia didn't look at him. She kept her eyes locked on me, her expression twisting into something truly ugly. "So what? So what if we use the money for other things? We are a family. Money goes into a pot and it gets used where it's needed. You have so much of it, you don't even miss it. Why are you so greedy?" "It wasn't a pot," I said. "It was a funnel, from my bank account to your desires, and I'm done. The tap is closed. The wedding is unfunded. The dress is your problem. The honeymoon is a fantasy." "You can't do this," Claire wailed, tears finally streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "I already told everyone about the venue. I'll be a laughingstock." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you called me a sad, lonely spinster to my face," I shot back. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you demanded $9,000 from a woman recovering from heart failure." "We will sue you," Patricia threatened, grasping at straws. "We had a verbal contract. You promised to pay." "Go ahead," I said, gesturing to the open water. "Sue me. I have the best lawyers in the city on retainer. I have proof of financial fraud. I have proof of coercion. Do you really want to open that door, Mom? Do you really want a judge to look at where all my gifts actually went?" Patricia went silent. She knew she would lose. She knew I had the records. "You are a cruel, heartless woman," Patricia said quietly, her voice dripping with malice. "I hope that boat keeps you warm at night, because you have no family left." "I have Maria," I said, the name acting as a shield against her venom. "And I have my health, and for the first time in my life, I have my self-respect." "Come on," Patricia snapped at Cameron and Claire. "We are leaving. She is having a breakdown. We will deal with this later when she comes crawling back." "I'm not crawling back," I called out as they turned away. "And Dad, pick up those papers. You might learn something about your wife." Cameron hesitated. He looked at the stack of evidence on the dock. Then he looked at Patricia's retreating back. "Cameron now," Patricia barked. He flinched. He looked at me one last time, his eyes full of a sorrow I couldn't decipher. Was it for me or for himself? He didn't. Pick up the papers." He turned and followed them, trudging down the dock like a beaten dog. I watched them go until they disappeared through the security gate. I stood there for a long time, the adrenaline slowly draining out of me, leaving my legs shaking. I sat down on the deck chair and looked out at the water. The sun had set, and the first stars were appearing. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the bank app. "Stop payment successful." I closed my eyes. It was over. The bond was severed. I was alone on the boat, but as the gentle waves lapped against the hull, I realized something profound. The emptiness I felt wasn't loneliness. It was space. Space for me, space for Maria, space for a life that didn't involve being bled dry. But I knew Patricia. I knew she wouldn't just walk away. She needed that money. And when a narcissist is cornered, they don't just surrender. They attack the thing you love most. I unlocked my phone and dialed the one number I knew I needed to call next. Not a lawyer, not a doctor. "Hello, can I speak to the head of security at Maria's school?" "Yes, this is Lydia. We need to update the pickup authorization list immediately. No one is allowed to take her but me. No one. The silence following the Marina confrontation didn't last long. It was the calm before a much uglier, much more public storm. I spent the weekend on the Maria Rose with Maria. We fished off the stern, ate sandwiches on the sun deck, and slept with the hatches open, letting the cool breeze wash over us. For 48 hours, I felt like a human being again. I felt like a mother, not a financier. But by Monday morning, the digital assault began. It started with a text from my Aunt Linda, Patricia's sister. "Lydia, I am hearing terrible things. Your mother says you're having a mental breakdown and stole Claire's wedding fund to buy a yacht. We are all praying for you. Please return the money. Family is everything." Then came a message from my cousin, and then a voicemail from the pastor of my parents' church. The narrative Patricia was spinning was impressive in its creativity. I was mentally unstable, I was jealous of my younger sister's happiness, and I had maliciously embezzled family funds to buy a luxury yacht in a fit of midlife crisis hysteria. She was trying to shame me into submission. She thought that if she turned the extended family against me, I would crack, write the check, and apologize just to stop the noise. She was wrong. She had forgotten that in my line of work, when someone spreads false data, you don't hide. You publish the audit. The bridal shower was scheduled for that Saturday at the Oakwood Country Club. I knew Patricia hadn't canceled it. In her mind, the show had to go on, and she was likely planning to use the event to fundraise sympathy checks from the guests to cover the stolen money. I didn't RSVP, I just dressed for war. I wore a sharp, tailored navy pantsuit that cost more than Claire's venue deposit, money I had earned, not begged for. I carried a leather portfolio containing 20 high-resolution color copies of my dossier. When I pulled up to the country club, the valet looked at me nervously. I walked through the double doors, the sound of my heels clicking on the marble floor echoing like gunshots. I could hear the murmur of voices from the garden room. I pushed the doors open. The room was bathed in pastel pinks and creams. About 40 women, aunts, cousins, family friends, and Claire's vapid entourage were seated at round tables, picking at overpriced chicken salad. Patricia was at the front of the room, microphone in hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "And it is just so heartbreaking," Patricia was saying, her voice trembling theatrically. "To have your own daughter turn on you, to steal from her sister's joy, we are just trying to pick up the pieces. If anyone can find it in their hearts to help Claire save her special day." Claire was sitting next to her, dabbing at dry eyes with a lace handkerchief, looking every inch the tragic victim. "Actually," I said, my voice projecting clearly across the room without a microphone, "I think you left out a few details, Mother." The room went dead silent. 40 heads whipped around. Patricia froze, the microphone screeching with feedback as her grip tightened. "Lydia," Patricia hissed, her face draining of color. You weren't invited. This is a private event. Leave now." "I'll leave in a moment," I said, walking steadily toward the center of the room. "But since you're discussing my finances and my mental health, I thought I should clarify the record." "Security," Claire shrieked, standing up and knocking her chair over. "Get her out of here. She's crazy." "I'm not crazy, Claire," I said, stopping at the first table where Aunt Linda sat. I reached into my portfolio and placed a packet of papers in front of her. "I'm just solvent, and I'm tired of being lied to." "Don't look." At that, Patricia shouted, abandoning the podium and rushing toward me. "Linda, don't read it. It's nonsense. She forged it." But Linda was already looking. "What is this?" Linda asked, adjusting her glasses. "That," I announced to the room, "is a comparison of the emergency funds I sent to my parents versus their actual spending. You all remember when Dad needed that urgent dental surgery in 2019? The one Mom started a prayer chain for." A murmur of assent went through the room. "I sent $4,500 for that surgery," I said loud and clear. "Turn to page 3. You'll see the wire transfer from me on June 12th, and on June 14th, you'll see the credit card charge for a week-long stay at the Grand Villas Resort in Cabo San Lucas. Dad didn't get surgery. He got a tan. Gasps erupted. A few women covered their mouths. Liar, Patricia screamed, grabbing my arm. You ungrateful little brat, get out. I shook her off with a force that made her stumble back. Don't touch me, I'm not done. I moved to the next table, handing out more packets. Page 5. The transmission repair for Claire's car that was going to cost her job, $2,000. Look at the date. Now look at the Instagram post on the next page. A new Gucci Marmont bag. Price tag, $2,100. Oh my God, a cousin whispered, looking at the side-by-side photos. I didn't steal Claire's wedding money, I said, turning to face the head table where Claire was now standing, looking like a cornered animal. I stopped payment on $52,000 of my money because I realized I was funding a fraud. I bought a boat with my earnings, and I'm refusing to pay for an $8,000 dress because I'm done being the ATM for a family that treats me like a stranger until the bill comes. It's not true, Claire yelled, looking around the room desperately. She's jealous. She's always been jealous because she's old and alone. I'm not alone, I said calmly. I have my daughter, and I have my dignity, which is more than I can say for you. Get out, Patricia shrieked, looking wild-eyed. Get out and never come back. You are dead to us. Gladly, I said. But before I could turn, the double doors at the back of the room opened again. It was my father, Cameron. He looked 10 years older than he had at the marina. He was wearing rumpled golf clothes, and he held a familiar stack of papers in his hand, the ones I had thrown on the dock. Cameron, Patricia yelled, tell everyone she's lying. The room fell silent again, waiting for the patriarch to restore order. Cameron walked slowly into the room. He didn't look at Patricia, he looked at me. Dad, Claire whimpered, Daddy, tell them. Cameron stopped in the middle of the room. He looked at Aunt Linda, who was holding the evidence of the dental surgery. He looked at the women, whispering. She's not lying, Cameron said. His voice was quiet, broken. Patricia gasped, Cameron, what are you doing? I checked the accounts, Trish, Cameron said, his voice rising, shaking with a mix of shame and anger. I went to the bank this morning. I looked at the history. I didn't want to believe it. I thought you were managing the money. I thought Lydia was just helping out. He looked at me, tears welling in his eyes. I didn't know you were bleeding her dry. I didn't know about the emergencies that weren't real. I just signed where you told me to sign. You useless old fool, Patricia hissed, her mask completely falling away, revealing the pure venom beneath. Shut up. No, Cameron said, straightening his spine for the first time in decades. I won't shut up. Lydia paid off the mortgage 5 years ago, didn't she? You told me the bank did a readjustment. She paid it off. Yes, I said softly. I did. And you, Cameron pointed a trembling finger at Claire. You told me your job paid for that apartment, but Lydia pays the rent, doesn't she? Claire crossed her arms, looking away, her petulance confirming everything. It's over, Cameron said. The wedding is over. We can't pay for it. And I won't let you drag Lydia's name through the mud to cover up your greed. The room erupted. The social veneer cracked. The guests were no longer looking at me with pity, they were looking at Patricia and Claire with absolute disgust. I looked at my mother. She stood amidst the ruins of her social standing, her mouth opening and closing, no lies left to tell. Goodbye, Mother, I said. I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The silence behind me was broken only by the sound of Patricia starting to scream at my father, but her voice sounded small, distant, and entirely irrelevant. The fallout was swift and total. By Monday, the cancellation of the wedding was official. Without my $52,000, the vendors pulled their contracts immediately. Claire tried to GoFundMe the remaining baht. Lance, but the story of the bridal shower had spread through the family like wildfire. Aunt Linda, bless her heart, had apparently given a play-by-play to anyone who would listen. The GoFundMe raised $45 before being taken down in shame. Claire's fiancé, a man I had only met 3 times, apparently had a moment of clarity when he realized the wealthy family he was marrying into was actually a house of cards supported by a sister he had barely spoken to. He called off the engagement 2 weeks later. Claire moved back into my parents' house, which was a poetic sort of justice, considering the atmosphere there. The legal threats Patricia had screamed about never materialized. My dossier had scared them straight. They knew that any attempt to sue me for promised gifts would result in a forensic accounting of the last decade, and that was a closet full of skeletons they couldn't afford to open. 3 months later, on the day that would have been Claire's wedding, I was sitting on the aft deck of the Maria Rose. The marina was quiet, the water was glass smooth. I was reading a book, a real paper book, something I hadn't done in years. Maria was inside the cabin, drawing. I heard heavy footsteps on the dock. I didn't tense up this time. I knew who it was. Permission to come aboard. I looked down. Cameron was standing there. He looked thinner, tired, but cleaner somehow. He was holding a small box. "Come on up, Dad," I said. He stepped onto the boat, looking around with genuine admiration this time, not the covetous glare of before. He sat down on the bench opposite me. "She's a beauty, Lyd," he said softly. "Really is." "Thanks, Dad." We sat in silence for a moment. The gulls cried overhead. "I moved out," he said suddenly. I blinked, surprised. "You did?" "Yeah, got a small efficiency apartment over on 4th Street. It's not much, but I couldn't stay in that house. Not after I saw the truth. Not after I saw what we did to you." He looked down at his hands. "I'm sorry, Lydia. That doesn't fix it. I know that. I was weak. I let her run everything because it was easier. I sacrificed you to keep the peace. And that is the greatest regret of my life." I looked at him. I saw the man who had taught me to ride a bike, who had been erased by his wife's ambition over the years. I felt a pang of sadness, but it wasn't the crushing weight it used to be. "I appreciate that, Dad," I said. "It took a long time, but I appreciate it." He placed the small box on the table. "This isn't money, I don't have any. Well, the accounts are a mess, but I found this in the attic. I thought you should have it." I opened the box. Inside was a small, tarnished silver locket. It had belonged to my grandmother. I hadn't seen it in 20 years. "Grandma always said you were the one with the spine," he smiled weakly. "She was right." He stayed for an hour. We didn't talk about Patricia or Claire. We talked about Maria's school, about the boat engine, about the weather. When he left, he hugged me, a real hug, not the perfunctory pat on the back I was used to. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "Not because of your job, but because you got out." As he walked away down the dock, I felt the final knot in my chest loosen. I went inside the cabin. Maria looked up from her drawing. "Who was that?" she asked. "That was Grandpa," I said. "Is he staying?" "No, sweetie, it's just us." "Good," she smiled, turning back to her paper. "I like it better this way." "Me too," I said. I walked back out to the deck and looked at the horizon. The sun was setting, casting a golden path across the water. I had lost a sister I never really had and a mother who never really knew me, but I had saved myself. I put my hand on the railing of the Maria Rose. The vibration of the water against the hull felt like a heartbeat, strong, steady, and entirely mine.